First play we're going to look at, 2nd and 2, one of the Patriots' first offensive plays.
What's going on, everyone? Brian Hines here alongside Tayler Kyles from CLNS Media. And Taylor, we are through 18 Patriots training camp practices, a couple joint practices sprinkled in there, 2 preseason games, and it's given us our first real look here at Drake Maye in this Josh McDaniels offense. And Taylor, from 2 guys who were very high on Drake Maye coming out of the draft last year, throughout his rookie season, through the ups and downs, he started really hot, it seemed like, this summer. And maybe the last few weeks hasn't been as good for Drake Maye, but where do you think he's at right now ahead of the preseason finale with his comfortability in this Josh McDaniels offense?
Well, I will say the most impressive thing to me is that he has had his struggles, but the resiliency that he showed, and that he'll have kind of a rough start to practice. That's what we saw here on day 18. He had some spray misses, errant throws, the kind of things that do worry you about Drake Maye's game, the consistency with the accuracy, but he finished on a high note, right? His second to last period, he looked much more consistent, had some downfield completions. Then in the end of half situation, with just 1 minute to go, threw a beautiful seam ball to Hunter Henry and ended up getting his team in position to score. And that was a situation that this offense has really struggled in throughout the summer. So for me, there's still a lot of things to work on. I think that there will be hiccups with the Josh McDaniels system. Maybe unfairly, I thought that we would see more of like what we saw with Mac Jones. And hey, we have no idea what week 1's going to look like, but we know Mac Jones against the Dolphins, that might have been the best game he's played in the NFL. He was sharp, was changing plays at the line. It was a really impressive debut for him. And Drake Maye being the kind of quarterback who wants to throw into space. That's what this Josh McDaniels system is built on. Also protecting the football, something that Drake Maye said is built into this offense, giving you consistent options. I think that maximizing the offense is still something that Drake Maye is going to have to get under his belt, but we're also talking about a second-year NFL quarterback who only started 2 years in college, so I'm very hesitant to hit any kind of panic button, but at the same time, there are definitely some areas for improvement from Drake Maye, but the resiliency, the athleticism, all those things you liked about him, I do think you've seen, even if some of the downfield production hasn't been what you'd like.
And it does feel like this is probably the last time we've seen him now through the summer, right? Because it doesn't seem like he's going to play in the preseason finale in New York. So I wouldn't be surprised if some of those inconsistencies carry into the start of the regular season. And then you would hope maybe after, September or 4 to 6 weeks that it kind of flips and it clicks and he starts rolling. But Taylor, one thing I think we both noticed when we watched the film, especially in that last Minnesota game, is some of those post-snap coverages. It seems to be giving him a little bit of an issue, maybe holding the ball at times and reading out defenses. How big of that is a concern for you moving forward?
I'm not terrified because these disguise coverages exist for a reason. Like, they confuse veteran quarterbacks, much less guys who once again only have less than 1 full season under their belts in the NFL. Now, when looking through all of his dropbacks, I will say the significant difference that popped out was the fact that when they disguise the cover 2, you see him kind of hold the ball for a split second, whereas with most other different types of coverages, he's not perfect. The accuracy, again, has been a bit inconsistent, but he looks more decisive. He's throwing either to his first read, he'll move to a second fairly easily, or if he has to run because it's man coverage, he's comfortable doing that. But whereas with these disguise cover 2s, there may be times where he's thinking it's single high man coverage. Not only is it not man, it's zone with split safeties. That completely changes the way you process the field. The strip sack against the Commanders, obviously that had most to do with the offensive line not giving him time, but Drake's progression started to the side of the field where you typically have more of a man beater. He had Pop Douglas open to the right, but he never even got to that side of the field. Whereas with a more experienced seasoned quarterback, you'd think that maybe they still would have gotten sacked, but you'd at least see their vision shift to a more opportune concept. And then against the Vikings, you saw where he had Demario Douglas right up the pipe against the linebacker, and you also had, I believe it was Kyle Williams or Kayshon Boutte on the outside, where it's Kyle Williams, which, hey, another guy who's gotten open consistently, that's good, but all he has to do is either move that safety or exploit the spot that he was in to throw one of those downfield shots. Winds up trying to extend the play. He gets a completion to Matt Collins, which is a great, rep. Those are the things you like about Drake Maye, where he can make mistakes, but he can also get himself out of them. But you have seen that when they do have those disguise cover 2 coverages, he's going to hold the ball a tick longer, and he has to think a bit more. Now, okay, we know the problem, or at least one of the problems. It's going to be up to Drake Maye and this coaching staff to make sure that when he sees it in week 1, because he will see it in week 1, he's prepared to do his best to attack those coverages and not be delayed in his processing.
You said guys are getting open. That's a plus, right? That's a good way to start compared to the last couple of years. But you mentioned the accuracy as well, and we've seen it on the practice fields. Even today, a couple spray misses. Even going back to his college tape, that's been a big thing with Drake Maye. So I'm not overly concerned about that because I think that's just part of the Drake Maye experience. But where are you with some of these accuracy and the misses that he has that pops up occasionally?
I'd say I'm more concerned about the accuracy than him in this Josh McDaniels system. Like, I know, as I mentioned, he hasn't gone downfield quite as much as I would like. I think part of that is also him trying to make sure he's not putting the ball in harm's way. Another big part of this system, because we know turnovers were a significant problem for Drake Maye last season. So I'm not too worried about that. I think he's going to find his groove at some point. But the accuracy, I don't know that we've gone consecutive days where he didn't have at least 2 glaring misses. And now practice is the place where those things happen. No one's going to be perfect, but there are some throws where you're just kind of wondering, where was that even supposed to go? Was it a throwaway? Did he miss high? There were times, especially today early on, specifically to Kayshon Boutte, where he was just forcing Kayshon to have to make some very difficult adjustments. Now, Drake Maye, again, still young, but you'd like to see more consistent ball placement, or at the very least, if you're putting it on the wrong shoulder, that's one thing, but you got to give your guy a shot to make the catch, and I think he hasn't done that as consistently as I would have liked. So if there was one area where I'm saying, like, Drake, you really got to figure this out as quickly as possible, it's not saying it's a quick fix, but it would be that accuracy.
I will say, I think there was a lot of attention on the preseason game against Minnesota, put on the high passes, and he even said, he came up a little amped up, like juiced up, which, Patriots fans have seen for 20 years. How often had Tom Brady come out so juiced up? Maybe the first couple drives weren't always so sharp. You saw some high passes from Drake, but in the preseason, he gets 2 drives. You didn't get the chance to see him come back out and play the rest of the game and maybe settle down, but you do see some of those sprays on the practice field. So I think the big issue with the sprays is if it starts leading to interceptions and turnovers, right? And he had 10 interceptions last year, obviously a big storyline. Do you think he can kind of corral that and still be this gunslinger, or do you think they do kind of have to dial him back a little bit to take care of the football?
I mean, I don't think you want to mess with this process too much. Like, there's already a lot on his plate knowing, hey, I have to protect the football. I got to be opportune with the shots that I take, and he is pretty good at that. So I don't know. Again, I'm not trying to hit the panic button on it necessarily, but like you said, with the Demario Douglas play, first of all, you don't want to have high misses over the middle. He had one of those in practice, in the joint practices, actually, to Demario Douglas, and then in the game goes off Demario Douglas's hands. That obviously affects it, but that turns into a near interception, and the defender just dropped it. So yeah, I am concerned specifically on the times where it's not just high and out of bounds, it's high and then it gets popped up into the air, and then you have a tip drill situation where the defense can capitalize.
So it hasn't been perfect this summer, but not hitting the panic button. The panic button is still in the back pocket. It's not even out on the table for Drake Maye.
It's in the sock, like the
there you go. Yeah, it's tucked away. Drake Maye, tucked away with Drake Maye. So again, it doesn't sound like we will see him in the preseason finale Thursday night. So we will see Drake Maye in week 1. So that's going to do it for us today. Again, 18 training camp practices in the rearview mirror for Patriots preseason coverage. Make sure you guys are locked on to Patriots Press Pass.